Welcome to Fear Spiral. Please don't cross the bridge. Don't even think about crossing the bridge. Just turn around and go home right now. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. But I was here to find a story, and stories don't write themselves. So I started walking onto the bridge. The bridge waited for me. Its wood groaned under my weight. Each step I took, it felt like the bridge exhaled, like a giant, ancient thing stirring in its sleep. I walked to the middle. The wind whipped around me, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something cloyingly sweet like overripe fruit. Then I saw them, the lanterns. 5 flickering lights appeared, swaying gently despite the lack of wind. They were spaced evenly along the bridge, and between each lantern hung a pair of shoes. Well, actually, they were more like clusters of rags where shoes had once been. The sight sent a shiver down my spine. I forced myself to look away, to focus on my breathing, on the rational thought that this was just a bridge, just an old, creepy bridge. That was all. I continued my walk, my eyes fixed on the end of the bridge. I could see the lights of Willow Creek gathered at the far end like fireflies in the twilight. Beyond them, I knew, was safety. When I reached the last lantern, I turned, and that's when I heard them, soft, rhythmic footsteps behind me. At first, I thought it was the wind, playing tricks on me, but the footsteps kept coming, getting closer. I spun around, my heart pounding against my ribs. I don't want to be too dramatic, but in that moment, I truly believed the bridge was coming to life. There, in the swaying lantern light, I saw a shape begin to form, a tall, gaunt thing with long gnarled fingers. It shuffled forward, its eyes to burning embers in the gloom. I screamed and stumbled back. The creature let out a low growl, something guttural and inhuman. And then it spoke. Its voice was like gravel grinding on bone. "Why have you come?" it rasped. "What do you seek?" It took another step forward, and I gasped, scrambling away. There wasn't much space on the narrow bridge, and I felt myself cornered, trapped between the creature and the abyss of the river below. I just wanted to see, I stammered, hoping it couldn't see the terror etched on my face. I heard stories about the bridge, I thought. My voice trailed off as the creature loomed closer. Its breath was cold on my neck, and I could feel the vibrations of its voice in my bones. "You should have listened to the stories," it whispered, and in its grip, I saw my own reflection, twisted and distorted, my face white as death. "Now the bridge will show you what it means to be patient." I screamed again, thrashing wildly, but it was too late. The bridge had me, and I wouldn't get away. Its claws dug into my flesh, tearing at my clothes, sending searing pain lancing through my arm. I thrashed, trying to free myself, but its grip was like iron. It dragged me towards the edge of the bridge, and I dangled there, suspended above the churning water. The forest around us suddenly a deep, inky black. The lanterns flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced around me. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The creature released me, and I fell, tumbling end over end into the freezing water. I surfaced, gasping, shivering violently, and that's when I saw it. The bridge, with its lanterns and its shoes, was gone. In its place was a smooth, featureless expanse of water. I struggled to my feet, my mind reeling, wondering if what I had experienced was real or a fever dream. Then I saw it, the small, insignificant detail that told me the truth. In my hand, I still clutched the railing from the bridge. It was smooth, featureless, like polished bone. I stared at it, my blood turning to ice water. The bridge wasn't just a predator, it was patient. And patience, I had learned, was a virtue you didn't want to test. My skin prickled with goosebumps. I struggled to catch my breath, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Had I unwittingly trespassed into somewhere I shouldn't have? Was that why the bridge didn't show up in my pictures? Was I actually walking on something cursed? My rational mind screamed at me to turn around and flee, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I couldn't move. All I could do was watch in horror as the handprints crept closer, inching forward as if alive. They slithered around my legs, icy cold, and I collapsed onto my knees, my hands instinctively pushing out to either side. The boards creaked ominously, swaying precariously. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the worst. But instead of pain, I felt something warm and wet trickle down my arms. Opening my eyes, I recoiled. My hands were covered in blood, not my blood, but someone else's. Panic clawed at my throat, making it hard to breathe. I scrambled back, knocking over one of the lanterns. It hit the ground, but instead of shattering, it pulsed. A deep red glow enveloped the bridge, illuminating the grotesque tableau before me. The handprints now covered the entire length of the bridge. They writhed, twisting into gnarled claws that reached out towards me, digging into the wood. The bridge groaned again, a long, drawn-out sound that echoed across the river. I felt the wood flex under my weight, threatening to snap. I looked down at my hands, still slick with blood, and realized with growing horror that they weren't mine either. They belonged to the creature that was slowly emerging from the bridge, tendrils of darkness coiling around my legs, pulling me down. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. I thrashed wildly, but the more I struggled, the deeper the creature's grip became. It was as though the bridge itself was alive, reaching out across the darkness to claim me as its own. My fingers scratched against the rough wood, digging into the grain as I desperately tried to pull myself free, but the creature's grip tightened, and I knew with a sickening certainty that I was trapped. There was nowhere left to go. The lanterns swayed, casting grotesque shadows that danced around me. I could feel the creature's presence seeping into my bones, chilling me to the core. Its cold, ancient energy wrapped around me like a shroud. I strained against the darkness that threatened to consume me, but it was no use. I was being pulled under. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The pressure eased, the darkness receded, and I collapsed onto the bridge, gasping for breath. The lanterns flickered, bathing the scene in an eerie glow. Around me, the handprints shimmered, receding back into the wood. The bridge was silent. I lay there for a moment, my heart pounding, listening intently. But there was nothing, no sound, no movement, no presence. The only evidence of what had happened was the blood still staining my hands. I stared at the crimson color, my mind struggling to comprehend what I'd experienced. Had I imagined it? Was it a hallucination brought on by the darkness and my own fear? Or was there something truly sinister lurking beneath this cursed bridge? Trembling, I stood up and stumbled back. The further away I got, the more the events on the bridge seemed unreal, but the blood on my hands remained, a stark reminder of my brush with the darkness. As I finally reached the end of the bridge, I turned back for one last look. The lanterns were out, plunging the bridge into darkness. I could have sworn I saw something shift in the shadows, but it was gone before I could be sure. With a shudder, I hurried away, eager to put as much distance between myself and that cursed bridge as possible. For the last 3 years, this is the story that has been haunting my nightmares. It started off like any other assignment. Our news station sent me to a small town called Oakhaven to cover the annual Mist Festival. Every year during the autumnal equinox, Oakhaven's old wooden bridge becomes shrouded in a thick, unnatural fog, a phenomenon that locals attribute to restless spirits. Legend has it that over 300 years ago, a group of settlers drowned while crossing the river. Now their souls are trapped in the mist, doomed to wander the bridge for eternity. I didn't believe any of it, of course. I was a journalist, not a tourist. I went to Oakhaven ready to debunk the myth of the ghost bridge. When I arrived, the festival was in full swing. People in silly ghost costumes roamed the banks of the river, laughing and taking pictures. An old woman dressed as a fortune teller held court under a tattered tent, and the local priest was doing his best to ignore her. He told me the mist didn't appear until after sunset, so I set up camp on the bridge and waited. As dusk fell, the temperature dropped dramatically. The wind picked up, whipping my hair across my face. Then I saw it, a thin white mist rising from the river. It spread quickly, swirling and eddying around my legs. I pulled my jacket tighter, ignoring the goosebumps that erupted on my arms. Then I heard it, slow, heavy footsteps. Each one echoed through the wooden planks, vibrating up my legs. I kept staring at the far end of the bridge, but the shadows swallowed everything. My throat went dry. I whispered, almost to myself, "Who's there?" Silence. Then the lanterns nearest to me blew out, one by one, as though an invisible hand pinched each flame. Darkness closed in fast, leaving only a faint red glow bleeding through the mist. I gripped my camera again, desperate. I raised it and snapped a photo into the darkness. Nothing. Of course, I knew the photos wouldn't turn out. I could feel the wind snatching at my clothes, hear the mist swishing around my ankles. But I had to try. I had to get something, anything to prove that I wasn't alone. Then I heard a noise, a scraping sound, as if someone were dragging themselves closer. I raised the camera again. This time, an image appeared, a shape, a human-like figure standing at the end of the bridge. Its body was long, thin, almost stretched, its head tilted unnaturally, as though broken at the neck. I lowered the camera instantly, heart pounding. What if the legend was true? What if the mist really was alive and I'd stumbled into its domain? I turned and ran. The boards beneath my feet moaned, and the handprints appeared again, this time racing toward me. Panic surged. I turned and ran, but the bridge stretched longer than before. No matter how fast I moved, the end seemed farther away. Behind me, the footsteps quickened. Faster, closer. "You crossed where you don't belong," a voice hissed, slithering through the air. The railing on my left snapped, and for a moment I saw faces, dozens of pale, drowned faces, peering up from the black river below, their mouths open in a silent scream. My vision blurred. My legs refused to stop, and then something cold and skeletal gripped my wrist from behind. I screamed. That's when I woke up. My heart was racing, my skin clammy. Sunlight streamed through my window, and the gentle breeze whispered through the trees outside. Just a dream, I told myself, reaching for my phone. But when I clicked on the photos I'd taken the night before, my blood ran cold. In the one picture, clear as day, was a face peering back at me, the face of a drowned girl with wide, accusing eyes. I never published the story. I didn't want to be laughed out of town by my colleagues, but I still have the photo. I keep it hidden in the back of my closet, locked away with all my other fears, and every now and then, just to remind myself that sometimes the truth is scarier than fiction, I pull it out and I stare. Okay, here's the deal. I have until sunset to get across this bridge or whatever S on the other side comes for me, so let's do this. This is the last place I expected to find a ghost. See, I'm researching haunted places because my new horror movie needs a spooky location, and this place just screamed boring. I mean, look, it's a beautiful old bridge. Sure, the locals call it the Whispering Bridge and claim anything built over water this high up will eventually collapse. But that's just superstitious nonsense. I mean, yeah, it's made of wood, but it's held up by science, not by some fairy tale curse. And those poor bastards who fell into the water below didn't drown, they just fell into the river. Simple accident, right? Yeah, an accident waiting to happen because of this thing. I took a few steps onto the bridge, careful to stay in the middle where the boards were less rotten. According to legend, this is where the ghosts linger, waiting to drag unsuspecting victims into the water. I don't know about victims, but I sure as hell felt like prey. Because as I crossed the bridge, the wind suddenly picked up, whipping around me, biting at my skin like animal teeth. Then I heard it, a whisper, close behind me, raspy and cold, like fingernails on a chalkboard. I forced myself to keep walking, telling myself it was just the wind, just the wind. But when the trees began to sway, even though there was no wind, I knew I had to get out of there fast. As I hurried along, something brushed against my leg, something dragging itself closer. I risked a glance over my shoulder. Nothing. I quickened my pace, but whatever was behind me moved with me, always just out of sight. I could feel its presence, dark and heavy, pressing down on me. Then I saw it. Something dark and indistinct, like a shadow detached from the trees. It was advancing toward me now, gliding across the bridge with unnatural speed. Whatever it wasn't human. Not the way it moved, not the way it looked. Panic clawed at me, squeezing the air from my lungs. I broke into a run, slamming into the railing and stumbling forward. And then I saw it, floating in the mist ahead of me. I could see its face now, just barely. A grotesque mockery of humanity, twisted and decayed. Its eyes, two black pits where the light had been leached out, leaving behind only emptiness. Its mouth hung open, revealing teeth as long and sharp as icicles, and the stench hit me then, the reek of rot and decay, of death itself. The ghost lunged, and I screamed. The icy hand dug into my wrist, its grip stronger than bone should allow. I tried to yank free, but the fingers only tightened, burning my skin with cold. I forced myself to turn my head. There was nothing behind me, no figure, no shadow, just the hand floating in midair clutching me. The veins bulged beneath its pale skin, and black water dripped from its fingertips onto the wood. Each drop hissed as though acid was eating through the planks. No, I gasped, jerking harder. The hand began to pull me backward, toward the railing, toward the water below where the drowned faces still writhed and stared. Their mouths opened wider, as if chanting in silence, calling me down. I screamed again, my voice echoing into the mist. My other hand grabbed the camera in desperation. I raised it and snapped a picture at the hand. Flashed the hand vanished instantly, but my wrist carried its imprint like black bruises burned into the skin. The silence returned, thick and suffocating. For a moment I thought I was safe, but then the bridge itself groaned, a long low moan, almost like a breath, and a whisper drifted up from beneath the planks. No one crosses alone. Suddenly, the lanterns at the far end of the bridge all ignited at once, blinding and red, revealing a silhouette, a tall, twisted figure, waiting. It wasn't moving, it was watching. It was one of those perfectly clear, star-filled nights that makes you wonder why you're not outside enjoying the view instead of wasting time on social media. But there was no view where I was going. Just the same for grey walls and the same two windows with their reflections. I turned on the spot and headed for the door, then froze. There was a silhouette at the far end of the bridge. I rubbed my eyes, willing the image to stay put, to remain whatever it was so I could get a good look before it disappeared, but it stood impossibly still. Its head was tilted to one side as though studying me. The red lanterns burned behind it, outlining a body that looked human but wrong. Its arms were too long, hanging past its knees. Its chest rose and fell in uneven, rattling breaths, like something imitating the act of breathing. I couldn't move. My body locked, frozen between terror and disbelief. The air around me grew heavy, pressing against my lungs. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then the figure twitched. Not a step, not a walk, a violent jerking motion like its body had been yanked by invisible strings. It took one step forward, the wood of the bridge groaning beneath its weight. Another step, another twitch. It was coming closer. I lifted my camera again, hands trembling, and snapped a photo. The flash went off. For half a second, the camera revealed its face. My heart stopped. It was not one face, it was many. A shifting mask of drowned men and women, mouths gaping, eyes rolled white. Their voices blended into a chorus, a single howl that rattled through the planks. You shouldn't have come here. The lanterns flickered, and suddenly the figure wasn't at the far end anymore. It was halfway across the bridge, and still coming. My legs finally obeyed me. I stumbled backward, my shoes scraping against the damp wood. Every instinct screamed to run, but the bridge stretched endlessly behind me, longer than I remembered. The figure twitched closer, its many faces shifting like ripples in black water. Some screamed, some wept, some grinned with rotting teeth. The sound of chains rattling beneath the bridge filled the air. I glanced down between the planks. Dark water churned violently below, but there were shapes inside it, pale arms reaching upward, fingers clawing at the wood, trying to drag me down. The figure stopped only a few feet away. Its head jerked again, unnaturally fast, before it spoke with all of its stolen mouths at once. You took the path, now the bridge will take you. A freezing wind surged through me, strong enough to nearly knock me off balance. My lantern shattered against the railing, plunging everything into a suffocating darkness. Only the faint glow of the figure's eyes remained, burning red. It reached out one grotesquely long arm, its shadow stretching across my chest, as if marking me, and then, the planks beneath me split open. I dropped to my knees, clawing at the wood, as cold, skeletal hands shot up from the water, wrapping around my wrists and ankles, pulling me down toward the black river beneath the bridge. I gashed my palm on something jagged, sending a spray of blood into the churning water. I cried out, scrambling back, my foot catching on a loose board. I tumbled forward, sprawling on the wet wood. The figure loomed over me, its faces inches from mine, and I could smell it then, the stench of rot and decay, the reek of death. Its mouths opened and closed like the beaks of 1,000 starving birds. Then it spoke, its voices echoing in my skull. "Give us your fear, little one. Give us your pain, your sorrow, your regrets," it hissed, tendrils of darkness snaking from its mouths, reaching for me. "Give us your soul." I scrambled back, my hands slipping on the wet wood. I cried out as my shoulder hit the railing. The figure loomed closer, its faces shifting, some contorted in rage, others in what seemed to be amusement. Its voices echoed, mingling with the screams and moans rising from the river below. "You cannot hide from us. You cannot escape. We are the bridge. We are the path. And when the path is taken, we claim what is ours." I pressed myself against the railing, searching for an escape, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. But there was no escape. I was trapped on this wretched bridge with a creature of nightmares. My breaths came faster, my lungs burning as terror threatened to consume me. The figure leaned closer, its eyes boring into mine, and I saw in them the reflection of my own face, twisted in fear. It tasted my terror, lapped it up like a starving animal. Then it smiled, or as much as a thing with 100 faces could smile. Its voices echoed with cruel delight. Such delicious fear, such sweet despair. "It has been so long since we have had the pleasure." It reached out, its touch icy cold, and I flinched, pressing myself against the railing, bracing for the inevitable. But then something unexpected happened. A sob escaped my lips, ragged and raw. I squeezed my eyes shut, surrendering to the terror that threatened to overwhelm me. I could feel the figure's presence looming over me, waiting, and I knew it was toying with me, relishing in my fear. But I didn't fight it anymore. I let the terror flow through me, shaping it, molding it, until it was something I recognized. And in that moment, as the river's moans echoed around me and the figures' faces twisted in a silent scream, I found myself. I was no longer prey, I was predator. My eyes snapped open, blazing with newfound resolve. The figure recoiled as if burned, its faces contorted in surprise. I stood, my voice echoing across the bridge. I am the bridge, I am the path, and those who walk the path belong to me. From the moment I laid my hand upon the ancient Overtree Bridge, I knew I was in peril. But it wasn't the curse woven into its timbers that chilled me to the bone. It was the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me from the inky blackness of the river below. I risked a glance over the railing. The Tremodog water flowed beneath the bridge with an unnatural stillness, its surface as black and featureless as a sheet of paper. No moon, no stars, not even the distant glow of street lamps from the town a few miles away could pierce the gloom. There was nothing to be seen except the swirling water and the distorted reflection of the single lantern hanging from the bridge. I told myself it was just an old, dilapidated lantern. Just an old, dilapidated lantern with a face peering out from behind the grime-caked glass. A face with cruel, mirthless eyes that seemed to mock my terror. I forced myself to look away, willing the image of the grotesque visages to disappear from my mind. I gripped the railing, willing my pounding heart to slow, willing the goosebumps to fade from my skin. When I turned back, the lantern was empty, dangling from its chains like a forgotten omen. Relief flooded me until I heard the soft splash of something entering the water. I whipped around, searching the darkness. My blood ran cold. From beneath the bridge, dozens of hands, skeletal fingers clawing for purchase on the wood, then more hands, and with them, ghoulish faces, pale, hollow-eyed, screaming silently before disappearing beneath the black tide again. A covey of shrieking bats wheeled overhead, their shadows falling like guillotine blades across the gasping visages. Then the lantern flickered, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw a face behind the glass. A face that seemed to twist and writhe like a living thing. The face of a man, or what was once a man, now a creature of nightmare, beckoning with a finger. Join them, it seemed to say. The hands below pulled and tugged, urging me forward. The face in the lantern grew larger, more distinct. It smiled, revealing teeth like shards of ice, and the stench of decay wafted up from the river, wrapping around me like a shroud. It was all too much. Panicked, I stumbled backward, desperate to escape the macabre spectacle unfolding before me. But it wasn't just the horror of the scene. It was as if something, or some malevolent intelligence, was reaching out from the darkness, dragging me toward the abyss. With a Herculean effort, I wrenched my gaze from the horrors below and stumbled forward, my foot catching on a loose board. I fell hard, scraping my palm on the weathered wood. But as I struggled to regain my balance, something brushed against my fingers, something cold and clammy, a rope, thick and frayed, reeking of mildew and grave earth. And as I recoiled, my fingers tightened around it. What was I doing? I wanted to scream, to tear my hand away, but I couldn't. It was as though the rope had taken root in my flesh, anchoring me to this cursed place. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw the face in the lantern lean closer, its smile widening, bearing those cruel, glistening teeth. I wanted to scream, to tear my hand away, but I couldn't. The face in the lantern leaned closer. Join them, it whispered, its voice a hollow echo, and the hands below reached out, beckoning, pleading. Desperately, I wrestled with the rope, straining to free myself from its icy grip. The face in the lantern twisted into a snarl, baring its teeth. Suddenly, a shard of glass from the broken lantern hanging above me fell into my palm. Pain lanced through my hand, but adrenaline surged through me, lending strength to my terror. With a Herculean effort, I wrenched my hand free, the rope falling limp and lifeless onto the bridge. In that instant, the face in the lantern shrieked, a sound that tore through the night, echoing across the empty moorland. And as the reverberations faded, I saw the face contorted in rage, twisted in a silent scream. For a moment, its eyes burned with hatred before flickering and fading, leaving me alone on the bridge with the echoes of screams and the stench of decay. But the respite was short-lived. The water below the bridge churned and frothed, and the ghostly hands began to claw their way up the wooden supports, reaching, grasping, their icy fingers digging into the wood. And from the inky blackness, the figure emerged, dragging itself onto the bridge, its body a grotesque parody of a human form, its eyes burning with malevolent glee. And then it spoke, its voice a sibilant hiss that seemed to slither through the night. Join them, it whispered, and the hands below pulled and tugged, urging me forward. And in that moment, I understood. The bridge wasn't just cursed, it was alive, and it wanted me. In the distance, the old iron bridge groaned, its pain echoing the turmoil in my gut. Each step I took on its rotting planks was a gamble. They bent and swayed under my weight, testing my nerve as much as my ankle, which throbbed with every pulse of the structure. I risked a glance over my shoulder. Nothing, just the whispering trees and the sun-dappled path behind me. Safe, I told myself, taking another step. Just keep moving. Then the ground split beneath my feet. No, not beneath. The planks rippled under my feet, bending like muscle, not wood. Each step pulsed with something alive, a heartbeat I could feel in my bones. I froze, staring down. The cracks between the boards widened, revealing veins, black and throbbing, snaking through the bridge like it was some giant corpse stitched across the river. And at the center, a shape shifted, coalescing into a figure as tall as the bridge itself, its face obscured by the shadow of its hood. It raised its arms, beckoning. Before I could stop them, my feet began to move. I stepped forward, then stumbled, catching myself on the rough bark of a tree root that protruded from the planks like a broken tooth. The figure at the center spread its arms. "You've walked its spine," it whispered, its voice the grinding of gears. "Now it wants your soul." The ropes on either side of the bridge snapped taut, not with the strain of wind, but like tendons tightening. They coiled around me, wrapping my arms, my chest, squeezing until I couldn't breathe. I looked down. The water beneath the bridge boiled with faces, dozens, maybe hundreds. They rose up, mouths opening and closing, chanting words I couldn't understand. But their eyes, every single one, was locked on me, filled with a hunger that mirrored the churning in my gut. I tried to scream, but the ropes forced the air from my lungs. My vision blurred, my body lifted off the boards. The bridge was swallowing me, but through the suffocating pressure, I remembered the shard of glass still clenched in my bloody fist. With the last of my strength, I slashed at the vein running beneath my feet. The bridge screamed. The sound wasn't in the air, but inside my skull, tearing through every thought, rattling my teeth. The rope spasmed and loosened, dropping me hard onto the trembling planks. The figure staggered, flickering violently, its faces flashing faster and faster. Child, mother, soldier, corpse, before melting into a faceless blur. The bridge shook harder, planks splintering, ropes snapping. The entire structure was collapsing. I had only seconds to decide: run for the far side, which seemed to be crumbling into the river, or jump into the black water below. I didn't hesitate. I plunged into the churning depths, bracing for the impact. But just before the water closed over my head, I saw the glint of sunlight on water. A ripple spreading from the point where I'd cut the bridge's heart, a small, almost insignificant cut on what had been a perfect, unblemished surface. But that was enough. The bridge was dying, collapsing into the river, and with it, the whispers stilled. The bridge groaned like a beast dragged from sleep. Planks split, ropes whined, and the black water boiled beneath me, as if the river itself had turned to oil and fire. Every face in that dark tide stared up with the same empty "please come home," and the voices swelled until they were a single tide in my skull. I tasted blood in my mouth. My chest felt hollow, as if something huge had settled on top of me. The ropes had loosened, but the bridge was still alive around me. Its veins thrummed, and the boards flexed like a drawn bow. It wanted me to step forward, to cross its spine until my feet found the other side and my heart matched its beat forever. There was no hero song in my head, only one narrow thought: don't become another whisper. Across the way, the far bank shimmered. Moonlight on empty land, trees motionless like sentinels. It was only a breath away if the bridge didn't stretch. But the bridge was stretching, stubborn, hungry. The distance doubled with each frantic step. The figure that had watched me all night lurched forward, faceless mouths opening and closing in a staccato chorus. It wanted me to look at it, to see the faces fall over my own. I clenched the shard of glass until my fingers went numb, and the pain was a clean thing in a world of fog. To choices: run or leap. Both sounded like traps. Running would only let the bridge make the path longer, let it feed on my weakening fear. Jumping meant the water, that black mirror that had already stolen so many. My lungs burned, my pulse hammered. I could hear the town, the bridge, singing its lullaby. Sleep, sleep, come close. I thought of the small things: the coffee shop bell that had been stuck, the woman at the diner whose smile had been just a touch too wide, the child's shoe half buried at the entrance. They were not monsters, they were memories the bridge had stolen and vanished. If I stayed, those memories would taste like me. I pushed off, not forward, not backward. I kicked hard to the side and leapt not into the black water, but out, toward the riverbank below. angling my body so the current would carry me, not drown me. The bridge flared, a sound in my bones like glass being crushed. Hands shot up, skeletal and pleading, but the arc carried me past their grasp. For an instant, just once, something in the black reached higher than all the rest. A single pale hand clutched at my ankle, cold as the underside of the moon. Pain flared, and I cried out. The sound ripped raw from me. The current took me, violent and blind, and I tumbled beneath the surface into cold so deep it hollowed my lungs. I fought, I kicked, my lungs burned. The voices poured over me like winter and flame. I bridged the surface coughing, sputtering, and saw the shore mud and reeds and the silhouette of trees. I dragged myself up, scraping hands and knees on roots, water streaming from my hair. The bridge behind me convulsed. Something huge and terrible convulsed, and then calmed as if disappointed but patient. I lay on the bank, shaking, the taste of iron in my mouth. The shard in my hand was slick with river water and something darker, like the stain of all the town's lost hours. I thought I heard, dim and distant as thunder, the creak of old ropes settling into sleep. I didn't stand right away. I watched the bridge, its lanterns still burned red along its length. Farther down, where the boards had been torn and folded like the pages of a thick book, the figure had not left. It rocked, a puppet stilled mid-pool. The river that had been a mouth closed on itself and flowed like nothing had happened, disguising the hands beneath. My phone useless since the start buzzed once then died. No messages, no signal. Just a single new photo in the camera roll I hadn't taken. My own face, eyes wide, reflected in a dark surface. Behind that small reflection, for a breath, an overlay of pale faces looked back, lined up like passengers in a Ferris wheel of some terrible carnival. I hauled myself into the trees, away from the bridge, away from the town's heartbeat. With each step the whispering thinned, but it never left entirely. Even now, hours later, when I close my eyes, I can hear the soft scrape of planks and the wet voices from that river. They ache with patience. At dawn the bridge looked like any broken old span that had stood too long over slow water. Damp planks, algae at the seams, a sag in the middle. The town's windows were dark. The diner sign buzzed faintly and then stuttered off. Hollow Creek looked empty, but I knew better. It had not died. It was waiting. I left a mark on my wrist where that pale hand had held me, two dark crescent bruises that never quite faded. I burned my clothes and watched the smoke lift thin into the cold air. I buried the shard where no one would find it. I told no one everything I'd seen. How do you explain a place that smells like memory? How do you tell someone that a bridge can hunger? Weeks passed. I moved towns for a while, but the bridge's lullaby is patient. It calls in the small, quiet moments, a sudden silence in a crowded room, a dream half remembered on waking, the sensation of being watched by something that looks like a place you've known all your life. Once, late at night, my camera picked up a new image, a solitary plank, shot from below, dripping river black water. In the center, pressed into the grain, were the faint imprints of many small palms, like a record of those who had waited. I tell you this because the bridge waits not only on Willows Creek, it waits in the edges of stories, in the places people forget and the things people lose. If you ever find yourself on an old wooden span with the night biting at your neck, listen. If the boards seem to breathe, if the lanterns flicker on alone, if the river looks too dark to be water, turn back. Go. Don't test the distance. Don't take pictures for proof, because some things are better left as whispers, and sometimes when the wind is just right and the water's very still, you can hear it out past the trees, past the road, where the world forgets. A long low creak like a bridge shifting in its sleep, and a chorus beneath it. We waited. We waited. We are waiting. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps me out.